Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this Monday's Wealth Creation Show. Today, we're going to look at the topic of starting to think rich. Now, I think when we say start thinking rich, people automatically think money and things as well, but we're going to talk more about the wealth side of it and how wealthy people, how they think. Do wealthy people think differently, Jim, than just your average person that maybe wants to get rich as such?
Absolutely. We absolutely do. I can guarantee you that we think completely different. Because I often scratch my head when some people say things to me and I think, oh my God. I'll tell you a classic example of that this morning. I was
Okay.
speaking to Ian about this.
Yeah.
There's this amazing amount of people that come to me over the years that have come to me and said to themselves, it's, oh, I'm looking for a full-time job with you. And I'm going like, okay, well, so what salary are you looking for? And just say for the sake of it, they say something like, oh, I'm looking for 30,000.
Mm-hmm.
All right, okay. And what are you expecting to do for that? Oh, well, just the normal stuff, like the 9 to 5, 37.5 hours a week. And okay, that's fine. So what's your current position just now? Oh, I'm working self-employed. All right, okay. So how's that going for you? Oh, well, I'm working all the hours. It's just taking its toll on me. It's so difficult. It's like, so how many hours a week are you working? Oh, must be working about 70 hours a week. So you're working double what you've got with me. You would have with me. So I would be able to have your hours really. And what are you earning with that then? Oh, I'm only making about £18,000 a year. All right.
So,
Let me get this right then. So you're wanting me to pay you double the salary for half the hours, and pay you for your holidays when you don't get paid for your holidays currently and self-employed, and actually pay your pension as well when you don't pay yourself a pension self-employed as well. So you want me to secure your future for 4 times the amount you're actually working for right now on your own. I'll rest my case.
yeah, I think it's all about the way people think about things, and especially like when you're looking at it as an employer. Do you know, employees are sometimes people, they don't understand everything that's involved in that. Like you say, there's pension contributions, there's holiday pay, there's,
Well,
you know,
national
there's
insurance,
running national insurance, running of offices. There's lots of stuff.
statutory sick pay,
Hmm.
and even sick pay if you've actually you maybe do 100%. Some employers do 100% for 6 months or something like that, and then X amount 50% thereafter. I mean, small businesses can't afford things like that.
Hmm.
You're either going to be here or you're no, and we can't afford to pay you. But we still comes out to us. We still have to pay it, whereas the government used to accept that they would pay it, and we'd be able to reclaim it back. But you can't do that anymore. So it's no easy. It's a huge burden for employers now. And the legislation, despite the fact that it's typical, it's like landlords as well. The tenants think the legislation favours the landlords, and the employees think the legislation favours the employers. But it's completely the other way around. In these instances, it's, and then you think to yourself, do you really want to be an employer?
I know, or a landlord even. And obviously we were just a couple of minutes running late there because I was actually talking to a landlord, and the one thing we were talking about he was asking about his rents and where we think we could get them and things because he's moving property across to his limited company because it wasn't originally, and he's like, I've got improvements I want to make and I need to. He says, but I'm just not earning enough. And that was the conversation I was just having literally minutes
And then
ago.
if he's moving over a limited company, he'll pay a capital gains tax
He's
bill
got that cost as
based
well,
on
yeah.
what it is.
Hmm.
So he's got to factor that in, and then he's got to also factor in the fact of the changeover, which it'll be chargeable all the way around.
Hmm.
You'll have legal fees on both sides as well. Then you'll also have, because you'll have to have a separate legal person for the limited company as opposed to you as an individual.
As an individual, yeah.
Well, actually, a lawyer might be able to do both because if it's in your name and you're a director of the company, then there's no conflict of interest for them under that. So the lawyer might be able to do both sides, might be able to save you a bit of money on that. That was one of the things with Elaine. It's like, obviously,
Yeah.
our limited company is going to take Elaine's ones. But
Hmm.
Elaine says if you actually put Elaine as a director of your limited company, there'll be no conflict, and you'll no get charged double the legal fees for doing it, because they would have to then get someone else to actually do that other side to represent Elaine rather than the limited company. But because she's a director, there's no conflict. So there's all these different interests, and that's kind of that's how probably rich people start to think. They start to think
Hmm.
but then more importantly, look what I spoke to you about the other now. It's like It's knowing the people to speak to in order to get the right
people,
result,
correct.
in order to get the right answers, in order to get answers which you don't even know about. Because I didn't know that. It's like, I would have just happily, if he said, well, you've got to get somebody else to do your lane side, it's like, okay then. So I'd end up paying double legal fees, where he's going, no, you could just put her as a director and that'd be fine. I checked with the bank to make sure they were okay with that, and the bank went, yeah, we're fine with that. We're fine with that. We're okay. Because
Yeah,
again,
I mean,
that's what you got to check as well, because some banks get bent out of shape, especially people like Shawbrook. I mean, they're the biggest lender in buy-to-let just now. They're throwing money like left, right, and centre at people. But Shawbrook and Aldermore are very, very restrictive when it comes to any changes later on, where the Bank of Scotland isn't. The Bank of Scotland, yeah, you want to introduce your kids as new shareholders, you want to put it into trust, that's no problem. We've got people that will do that and help you for that as well. In a separate company we've got an agreement with. Whereas you ask Aldermore or you ask Shawbrook that, it's like, no, that's no happening. We're not jeopardising anything.
Why is that then?
Because why would you want to change anything if you've got everything as you want it? Why would you want to accept a change then?
But then why are
the
the Bank of Scotland so willing to then just change things, but they're not?
Because the Bank of Scotland is probably taking the same approach as what Shawbrook takes, for example. But Shawbrook's been more draconian because they've not got the skills yet to communicate with people. I've no doubt the Bank of Scotland might come back and say, well, we can't really do it like that after, you put that forward, and they end up seeing it. Whereas Shawbrook's on it straight away and they go, no, we want to see stuff. We want to see how this is done. You're not allowed more than 2 shareholders. You're not allowed, if we're going to see a discretionary trust getting involved, then we want to see the discretionary trust and how it's set up. And they're off the bat, they're trying to put you off as soon as you start, because they want status quo. They want exactly how they want it. Whereas Bank of Scotland, they're like, no problem, customer for life. You've got to think about the lifetime value of a customer. And that's where the Bank of Scotland probably excel in. And Shawbrook have a bit of naivety about that, the lifetime value of a customer. Because all they're doing is buy-to-let, whereas as far as I believe, whereas Bank of Scotland is a mainstream bank. You could be a personal customer of theirs. You could be a wealth customer of theirs as well at the same time. So you could have a portfolio wealth and investments with them, and a wealth division of theirs. You could also have your buy-to-let with them. You could have your personal mortgage with them. You could have all these different things, whereas Shawbrook isn't that mainstream in terms of how they work, I don't think, unless somebody else will tell me different. But my initial response from them was pretty negative. So that's fine, because they serve the purpose. But then the object of the exercise now is it's just to get to this stage, and then work out how to get to the next stage, and then work out how it gets to the next stage, and then work out how to get to the next stage, and that's all you do. So you should see how I'm doing it systematically, rather than going, well, I've got to change that, and I've got to change this, and I've got to do that for this, and that for this, and that for this, and it's like, oh my God, where does that?
Yeah, and then you feel overwhelmed.
That's how a broke person thinks.
And that's a prime example of how wealthy people do think differently, and how, their behaviours and knowing, like, right, I need to go and speak to this person because that's what they specialise in, whether it's like mortgages or a solicitor or things, and their mindset and things that do set them apart from, like you say, a broke person's thinking. And it's these kind of habits and behaviours that ultimately, catapult them forward to success and being a wealthy person, and not just rich as opposed to like money oriented things. A wealthy person is quite different.
What was it I saw last night? I tell you what, I stayed up all night and I was watching Netflix thing on Trump. It's like, flipping heck, what a master of marketing. And this guy was, this presidential thing was all from the 80s. That's how long it's taken him to get here.
So that's how long it's been in the pipeline.
Yeah, that's why he's planned and prepared. But I noticed what I really saw out of that was the planning and preparation that went on behind the scenes, and the analytics about, do we go now or do we not, over all these years to get to where he is now. How he dealt with bankruptcy, and how he managed to get out of that, and then how he floated his company and brought other people in, and then that made it worth even more, because obviously supply and demand for your shares. So then it pushes up the price overall for everybody else prepared to pay what they are on the open market. Therefore, it pushes up his value as well, because he's naturally got just a part ownership of the company, but not all of it. But that's fine. So he ends up with 50%, but the reality is it's still, the 50% is still worth what it was when he had it on its own, because the public want more.
Right, definitely.
What could I liken it? You're making a 20% return on your capital in your own company, and then suddenly you float that company on the market, and more people want to buy in for double the price, because they'll still get a 10% return, and that's good enough for them. So instantly, your shares have doubled in value, because people see that as worth half the amount to them, but still give them a 10% return on investment, in a dividend. Whereas, so that's kind of what that's like, and that's and collaboration and businesses and the right power teams are essential over a period of time. Hence the reason why I do so much research. I keep researching all the time to see the right answers, to get the right information, and then I formulate. So I'm very reluctant to change unless it's absolutely a necessity for a factual reason.
Right,
So it's
okay.
not just for a let's
Just
try
for the
it
sake of
and
that,
see
yeah.
what happens. It's like, no, this I know if I do this is where it'll end up for definite. I know that for a fact. Whereas where it's a different, you've got your high risk takers, and there's often this thing around people about how they need to be high risk all the time, and it's like, no, really. A classic example is Elaine took her pension out of Diageo.
Yep.
She stuck it in a Standard Life UK equities, and that was just last year, and it's accumulated by 15% in investment return. So she's made 15%. She's not even done anything in a year.
Yeah.
Now, I say 15%. Really?
It's still a
Peanuts.
good, yeah, it's a good
15% is no much. But to everybody else, 15% is like, oh my God, it's 15%. It's like, I'm like, no, I'm looking for a hell of a more than 15% every single time. And that is probably the difference between somebody that's rich and somebody that's wealthy.
It's wealthy.
Because there's a distinction. Rich is you've got money. You've got money coming in. To me, rich is money coming in all the time. And wealthy is like, yeah, you've got huge assets, asset worth. Your net worth, in other words, your assets minus your liabilities, not just your assets. The classic example is, oh, I'm a property millionaire. It's like, okay, so how much you got in property? Oh, I've got $1 million. Okay, so how much you got in debt? Oh, I've got $1 million. Right, so you're broke.
An asset, yeah, but no.
Yeah, you're not a millionaire. You're broke. You're not. Your net worth is zero. You've got $1 million in property. You've got $1 million in debt. Wait 20 years when it doubles in value, and you'll be a millionaire. But you don't have the right to call yourself a millionaire right now.
Yeah,
And
once
don't
appreciation,
kid people on,
yeah,
and don't be a furu, a fake guru, because that's what they do.
yeah.
Your
And
net worth.
I think there's a lot of people that do that, and that's it's one of the first things I wanted to kind of start discussing today, and it was how, do you know, the difference between wealthy and rich, and people equating wealth with stuff and items and tangible things, and it's a really big one, and a lot of people do it, and we see it quite a lot, especially on social media and platforms like Instagram and TikTok and things, and people associate their wealth with a lot of things, and like with luxury
We
cars,
talked about this morning.
big
Classic
houses.
example is you would think somebody that goes offshore and earns 90,000, £100,000 a year is going to be minted, because it's like, oh my God, most people are on what, 33,000. That's the average salary, or 30 grand or something like that in Fife. And most people are on that on average. So to have 100,000 as a salary or 90,000 as a salary for going offshore is like, it's 3 times as much. And then when you think about it, it's like, well, if you live like a person on 30,000, you're going to have a hell of a lot to invest.
Yeah.
But they don't. They tend to bet all the time online. They tend to go to the bookies. They tend to go to the pub when they're back.
Sit in the pub.
They tend to have the BMW 5 Series, the M5 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's £90,000. They tend to have the new kitchens the ultimate new kitchens, the ultimate new bathrooms, the ultimate house, the biggest house they can get, and all the rest of it. And then they tend to go on the most expensive holidays possible, and live at their means than below their means, or
Live
maybe even beyond their means.
right at the brink of their means, aye, or even above, yeah.
Beyond their means. Because the classic example is, let's book our holiday, and it's like, oh well, if we book it now, it's maybe £6,000 or something like that, and but we can only put £100 down now. So they booked a holiday they've got to pay £6,000 for in 3 months, 4 months time. So they're living beyond their means then, because they've not got the money at that point in time. That's no rich,
No,
even though you're earning 100,000 a year. Really, that's broke.
no, you're just
living. You're just broke at a different level. You're
Mhm.
broke at a different
Yeah.
level. You've got no assets. You've not really got anything to show for it at all. And then when you finally go to retire, you're not retiring. You're going to have to take a job because you've not built enough wealth.
Which is
You've not
crazy
built
to
enough
think
wealth to
that
see you
after
through.
all that time and all that money you've earned, you could be sitting at retirement or that time in life and not really have a lot in the bank to keep you going.
If you want to have £60,000 a year, because they reckon
Mhm.
that's what it is to get by when you retire. If you want to have £60,000 a year, you're going to have a pot of 1.5 million in your pension.
Which to a lot of people might seem like an astronomical
That's no
amount of money.
chance. That is no chance. And I'll
Mhm.
tell you, I was reading an article this morning actually in the Telegraph. Quite interesting. It says the median wealth is just under 300,000. 1.5? 300,000 is the median wealth according to the Office of National Statistics. Median wealth. That's taking into account savings, investments, properties, assets, and pensions.
Mhm.
And this figure ranges from as low as 15,000 to beyond 500,000, depending on age. Households 65 to 74 are getting richer at the fastest rate of any generation and are sitting on nest eggs worth 33 times that of those aged 16 to 24 in Generation Z.
Mhm.
Almost a third, 29% of these, in the final decade of their working lives, aged between 55 and 64, had over $1 million in wealth. A third had over $1 million just. And I'm saying just.
Just and that's just like enough to
That
live
would
on.
frighten the shit out of me having to go back to that.
It would, yeah.
Because it's
And,
like my plans wouldn't be my plans anymore, having to
no,
rely on that. However, you've got to understand as well, it's like I don't live a life of a
lavish luxury.
millionaire, really.
Mhm.
Well, apart from Necker Island.
Yeah, a few things, but in general, I know you don't.
But yeah, but I don't. And I'm actually at the point of actually deciding my car, actually giving it away,
Mhm.
and for someone else to use, and actually just run about my camper van, my T25 1981, 40-year-old camper van, and that's all I need. That's all I need to.
Just
That's all I need
something to get you from
to
A
get
to
by.
B. Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't really need to go anywhere anymore. Everything can be done remotely. Everything can be done over the phone, over Zoom, over Teams. And if I really need to go somewhere, I'll take a shot of Lane's car and we'll go somewhere else. So
Mhm.
I don't really need anything like that anymore. So it's that classic example. I don't need a car. What's the point of buying one then?
Yeah.
And that, I think, is how wealthy people think.
And this is where then, if you are that kind of person who's like we made examples there of people with a lot of income but still just kind of living at the edge of their means or possibly by that and not having anything set up for retirement things, this is when you really need to start learning from someone who's far more successful in what they're doing with their money. Have somebody that's a mentor and not these people that are influencing on social media just flaunting status things. You really need to find somebody or people or persons to learn from and be able to implement really money savvy strategies into what you're doing and not just spend because you're going to be left at the end of it with no money to survive on after all your hard work basically.
People don't think. A lot of people don't think like that. They don't think in that terms. And the reason they don't think in that terms is because it's miles away in their mind.
Hmm.
It's something. It's like I have to deal in the here and now rather than actually thinking about what's going to happen later on. But by the time you get to there, you're too late. It's kind of like your health.
Hmm.
If you don't look after your health, and this is what I'm going to talk about at the property investors meeting in Edinburgh, It's all very well accumulating all this wealth, but when you get to your 50 and 60, because that's probably most people's plans, it's like, are you going to be actually be able to enjoy your wealth?
Yeah,
Because
you've got
I
to be
tell you
fit, you've got
what,
to be fit enough.
yeah, you might not be in a position to actually be fit enough to actually go overseas or do anything. You might not even be here because you've been drinking too much, you've been smoking too much, you've been vaping. By the way, vaping is worse than
It's terrible. I
smoking.
know. I
Vaping
know.
is worse than smoking, by the way. And you don't believe that shit that you get from the industry about the fact that, we've not got any conclusive evidence. Are you stupid or something? It's clearly obvious. If we were designed to inhale vapor like that into our lungs, it would be in the air.
Yeah,
We would be set up like that.
it is really bad.
That would be a natural thing. There would be an environment that actually created that. Our whole
Yeah.
being is actually your whole body is a whole engineered manufacturing system to make sure everything else runs perfectly well. So when you start introducing things into it that aren't natural to it, then it will have a consequence later on in some shape or form about the constant use of it. It's like putting a turbocharger on a car. The car will wear quicker at certain parts of the car because it didn't expect to have a turbocharger on it, and it'll put more strain on everything else.
Yeah.
This is why when I train 6 times a week now, so I'm 6 times a week now, and I
Okay.
do a lot of what we call base runs. Now, base runs is 147 beats per minute on your heart, and that's below threshold. That's so it builds your heart for sustainability, it builds your heart for health, and it builds your heart for endurance. So it can last a long time. Whereas if you've got runners, it constantly my one of my mentors in ultra running, Christian Delacour, actually told me about this. He said, Jim, you're caning yourself all the time. Now, this was about 3 or 4 years back. He says, you're giving it large all the time. You're sitting way beyond threshold every time you run. You are actually going to do yourself some damage. And I'm like, away you go. It's like Mr. Resilient. But lo and behold, I was out of the picture because I started doing some serious damage to the rest of my body. It wasn't my heart, it was actually my legs. And my bones and my structure and my ankles and my knees and everything like that, it actually started affecting it because I was doing stuff like that. So see how you think at the time it's not going to be any bother, and then it starts to catch up with you. I liken it almost whatever it is you do in moderation, and you try to get away with moderation, and it's maybe a toxin to your body. Classic example is alcohol, by the way.
Yeah.
It's kind of like drinking. It's kind of like taking a teaspoon of arsenic in your tea every day. It won't kill you at that point in
That
time,
little bit, yeah. Or
but over the long term, it will kill you. And that's what alcohol does. Alcohol's ether. Our bodies weren't designed to drink ether. It's a chemical which is completely adverse to our body.
it's totally
Um,
foreign to my body, yeah.
yeah, it's not meant to drink ether. And everybody thinks, and all this shite you get on the telly about, in moderation, bullshit. There's no moderation when it comes to drinking something. It is a toxic chemical to your body. No matter how much you water it down, it's going to catch up on you at some point in time. Hence the reason why most people can point to someone else exactly their age and compare themselves to them and then, holy shit, you're goosed. You're knackered.
Yeah. Obviously,
It's like,
I'm
how is that? And it's more than likely because they're unhealthy. They drink to excess, they smoke to excess, they don't get the right sleep quality, they don't exercise, and they're possibly obese as well. And that's the typical traits. And they're also become what we call insulin resistant. And if you become insulin resistant, it leads to a lot of diseases.
how
And
to digress, but how does that happen then?
because your body builds up an intolerance to insulin.
Right.
And what happens is you become insulin resistant at that point in time. Now, you could do it within 6 hours, apparently. I've been watching Diary of a CEO, so if anybody wants to know about that, the Glucose King, it's on the now. It's probably about 6 days before it was uploaded 6 days ago. But
Okay.
apparently, he says what you can do is I could make your body insulin resistant in basically 6 hours. But he says equally, I can take your body and actually reverse the insulin resistance within 2 hours just by doing certain things. And the insulin resistance leads to things like dementia.
Right.
Yeah, and it leads to your fat cells actually getting bigger and bigger and bigger. We're all born and we all accumulate fat cells, and the only way you get fatter and you get thinner is the same fat cells are there, but they just go bigger and they go smaller. That's it. So when somebody says it's just the way I was born, you're absolutely right. It doesn't mean to say you've got to eat everything that's in sight, and you've
Which is
got to
what,
eat
yeah.
obsessively, and you've got to eat all the wrong things. Yeah, you're maybe born like that, but everybody else is born like that as well, and they seem to manage. It's a psychological thing, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also the fact that your body constantly needs all the time. It needs all the right nutrition, and your body will keep telling you to eat every single time until you get the right intake of nutrition of that certain thing it's seeking. No, I know that because I'm obviously vegan and
Yeah.
plant-based. So I have lentil shepherd's pie, and Elaine makes it, and she's made it twice successively. And the two times I've had that, I've always been craving for something more to eat, and yet it seems enough. But I know that that's what, and I've had to have a higher protein content, so I've got protein from somewhere else to actually top that up, and I've been full after that. So I know what's caused it. It's my body's craving a bit extra protein. Now I'll be honest,
Protein, yeah.
I'll knock people out of the park when it comes to protein. Anybody on here that's watching this right now, unless you're a bodybuilder and you're taking protein supplements, you will never get to the level of protein I intake. But protein is also converted to a carbohydrate, and it's
Yeah.
used by your body as a glucose if you get excessive amounts of it. So that's why people that take a lot of protein can still get fat, even though they're not eating carbs, because your body converts it.
It changes
Yeah.
it into carbs, yeah.
So it's all these things. You see how it's becoming a student, and the rich thing and the wealthy thing is all a result of what you're learning
Yeah.
all the time, and in every way and every day, and that's what happens over a period of time. So it's not just about this isn't just about money. You could have all the money in the world, and I'll guarantee you, when you're on your deathbed, you would trade it for just a few more weeks.
Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
it's true what you say, because a lot of people, and they do spend a lot of this time and thinking, and they do equate wealth with stuff and possessions and things. And then I'd also put in here, there was something I put in here about wealth that I thought was really, I think you will agree is really relevant, but wealth is more about freedom rather than flaunting like your status symbol, and it's more about having control over your time and your choices and your life and in its entirety.
I think you nailed it on the head when you said freedom. By the way, if you're on here on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, guys, because it does help us. It's nothing else other than to do with you'll get notified when we go live again. This is every 12:30 on a Monday, but you'll get notified about this every single time. And you really want to tune into this, because it's not me it's telling you what you should be doing. It's the knowledge and expertise I've learned from someone else. So I'm just a catalyst to deliver the message from other people who are far more successful than me. Definitely. And it's the things that I learn and I implement in my life that work for me probably will work for you as well. So remember, hit that subscribe button, definitely, overall. But you're right. It's freedom. Again, I talked about this morning with Ian. It's the classic example about, do you think you would enjoy your job more knowing that you had all the freedom in the world and you had the option just to walk away anytime you wanted to anyway?
Because you wouldn't feel so bound
No,
to
you're
something.
not. So I could walk away for this anytime I want. I
Mhm.
love doing what I do, though.
Yeah.
And you love and I'll defy anybody that says they love their job, because I'll give you the exact test to loving your job. If you love, convince me, if you love your job, this is what you ask yourself. If you didn't get paid for it, would you still keep doing it?
Yeah,
I
that's a
would.
good one. Yeah.
I would. That'll tell you if you really love your job or you need the income. One or the other. Because people convince themselves they love it. Oh, I love my job. Oh, I love my job. And the next minute something happens, it's like, oh, I hate my job. It's like, well, there you go then. And it's the fact that it's the paycheck you get. You're there,
Yeah.
nothing else. Because if you loved your job, you would do it for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
I think that's a good thing. So that it's having that freedom. It's knowing you could do anything you want to do is the greatest gift you could ever give yourself. Knowing you could do anything you want to do when you want to do it, and money will never be an option within reason, obviously. I
yeah.
mean, I wouldn't go anytime soon and say, I tell you what, I'm going to be an astronaut, because that's available to buy for 650,000. I have looked.
That doesn't surprise me that you've looked at
I
that.
probably will be at some point in time in the future. I will go up into space. I probably will do that. But 650,000 isn't worth it to me now.
No.
Maybe later on, but not now.
So it kind of brings me on. I've wrote in here in my notes about people having the fear of taking risks when you're thinking about wealth, and um, I'd be careful when we say maybe taking risks. You kind of pointed out when we first started when we were
I
having our
tell you
talk.
what, I'm going to stop you there. That's sneaky when I think about it. But there's something obviously at the back of my mind, because
Yeah.
650,000 is what I'm going to make on the next deal I'm about to do, and that's tax free.
So maybe that's
Yeah, the tax bill is going to be 200 grand,
right.
but I'm going to be left with 650,000. That is spooky. The fact that being an astronaut is 650,000. But I can't come to that terms about the
No.
fact that I would rather invest it and then use it as equity to leverage myself to buy more property at this point in time, which will eventually accumulate to 650,000, and that'll be a lesser proportionate amount in the future.
Mhm.
It's the classic example about when I went to these people about the SAS, about doing a SAS pension.
Yeah.
And I went, my pension's only like 5% of my net worth. Why am I spending all my time on this? I'll just let a fund manager look after that. It's only 5%. Who cares? It's not that important to me. Oh, but you can do tax-free things, and how many hours is it going to take to learn all that crap?
Mhm.
But it's like, no, you're not getting it. You're on a totally different pitch to me, or
Yeah.
I'm maybe on a totally different pitch to you. And the fact that that's not gonna make sense to me. Concentrating more time on something that's only 5% of my asset wealth.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. So when we talk about taking risks, and I was just taking like calculated risks, and I think obviously you've just demonstrated that that is something that you do fairly often. You take risks, but like you've always done your due diligence and calculate things beforehand. Like you said, you don't just make changes on a whim or do things on a whim. You look at the facts and explore that first before you do these kind of changes or push yourself to make a decision.
Yeah, classic example. Let's open up dundeeproperties.co.uk.
Yeah. Hmm.
Right, okay. There's no much risk in that. It's a low entry thing. We don't need an office. We've got an estate agent already for that area. We cover the cost already because they do things other places. So why would we not do that then? It's not going to grow as quick. Who cares?
Yeah. No
It's
matter.
like I've got all the time in the world. As far as I'm concerned, I've got another 62 years.
Yeah.
So what am I? I'm not even halfway through my life. I've got another 62 years, so I could wait. And if your worth doubles every 20 years in terms of property, if it doubled every 20 years, then you're talking about, yeah, okay, quite a lot of millions over the next 60 years.
Hmm.
I'm all right with that. And then you've got the income you generate every single time as well with the assets that you've got. Then you multiply that up over the next 60 years, and then it's like, wow, that's a big number. That's when I was talking about. It's like, oh, space seems to be okay, maybe it is. Maybe that is a proposition.
But then that's all about having this understanding of how the growth of wealth and how wealth grows and compounds and things. You need to have that understanding, to have that vision, enable you to actually become wealthy in essence.
So how did that start? It started if I can just make a couple of thousand a month
Hmm.
to 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 help to build wealth in the very beginning. It started 30 years ago. But maybe started longer before that. But it was the learning process to get up to that point of actually
Hmm.
taking the plunge and the mental the mental. For me, it was mental torture because I had to change the way I was thinking, and it was really difficult to do that because I'm quite disciplined in my approach to things, and that's how I'm wired up. So I had to rewire my complete brain in terms of how I thought in order to do that. So that took a lot. That took the longest time to do in the beginning. But just like anything, the longest time to do anything typically is build the foundations. It's in a house, and then the next, it's like we do that all the time, don't we? It's like a housing site opens up, and you're driving in your car, and you're looking over, and you're thinking, "Oh, right, okay, they're building houses there." And then then the next time you go past, you go, "Oh, look, they're putting in the foundations." And then the next time you go past, it's like, "Holy shit, the houses are built."
Where did they come
Hey,
from?
what? Aye,
Yeah.
exactly. How did that happen? It's because all the work was put in the beginning about making sure it was all done right and the foundations were in place. And then, boom, like that, like the J curve, just like that. It's like all this bit in the beginning, and it just goes whoosh in terms of the growth. And it's kind of like house building. It's kind of like how wealth works, how you compound over time. It's like the J curve just goes mental. It's like it's always a J curve in terms of how that works. But a lot of people don't realise that, and they fall out at the very bottom and think, "Oh, it's difficult." I've got a friend like this. It's like convinced they want to start their own business, but all the work and hassle they've got to do, and oh my god, and I was getting told this morning what he was saying was like, maybe I should just go back to supply teaching. It's like after them leaving their teaching, it's like I'm just going to go back to supply teaching now. Okay, so you've completely forgot the reason why you left teaching because you hated it.
Yeah.
And you couldn't work within that environment. But I'm getting told this by a third party, by the way, by another friend. But we all know each other, and it really gives me a great insight into how the human psyche works, because it's the whole thing about when you present them with a really challenging opportunity, and it technically is painful in terms of the not the physical, but the mental process in order to change to do that challenging ability, which has greater rewards, by the way. They lose sight of the rewards and suddenly they love their job. I used to be the job fixer for people, because when I did network marketing, I used to go around people's houses and go, well, you start here and you get 6 other people and you start, and they get 6 other people and you start, and they get 6 other people and you start. And by that time, as you're earning like 20 grand a month, and everybody else is earning as well at the same time, and we're all getting bonuses based on what we're doing, and we build this network together, and we're a team together. And everyone, oh, I'm signing up to that. I'm signing up to that. And then people realize that, oh, you've got to phone people, and you've got to get them involved, and you've got to phone customers, and you've got to do all that. And then you've got to get up in the middle of the night and go and get your stock from someone else's. You know, you've got to get it from them. So you meet somebody in a car park in the middle of the night to drop it off. Wasn't it? Everyone used to think, what are you doing? What are you doing with all this white powder? Exchange it. It's soap powder. That's what you were selling. You were selling soap powder and everything like that. So it was all this white powder in bags that you were selling to each other in car parks in the middle of the night and stuff. But it was actually soap powder, selling soap. And that's what you're doing. And all of a sudden, it's like, all right, okay, well, my job, like 5 o'clock, I just stop and I do nothing. And that's me for the rest of the night. It's like, and all of a sudden, it was like, oh, I love my job. After them going, I'm going to get it right up my boss when I get all that money. I'm going to tell them where to stick it. And it's like the next minute, 3 weeks later, it's like, oh, I love my job. It's great.
And that's because they've come to the realization that they actually weren't
do some work.
They weren't actually really prepared to put themselves out there. So where they are already,
everybody wants the reward, but there's nobody in the queue to do the work.
Yeah.
Mine hit that subscribe button, folks. when they just subscriber, I tell you what, if we get a decent amount of subscribers, I might get other people on the channel. You never know. I might get people from other areas, like maybe Jamie Siminoff of Ring.com previously, and people like that, because you know I've still got a connection with these people, and we might do that and see how we get on. But we'll see. No board. The Wealth Creation Show was created for my generation's of children, and that was all it was. But hey, let's have some other fun with it, I suppose.
I was just going to say, we do try and have a wee bit of fun with it, and we always pick topics to kind of talk about and lead conversation, but we're kind of like, let's see where this goes and where it takes us, so you never know. But the importance of learning and things as well, Jim, you were talking about, And I think this is a really important thing, that people obviously who are wealthy people and things understand that knowledge is power and things as well. But people might have the misconception, like, say it's property. Somebody's involved in property, like, I'm going to learn everything about property, but it's maybe not always about that. It might, you know, you'd really have to have a bigger understanding of just the world in general, and how things work and how people work together, and just how things, you know, different economies and how that affects how the world works, basically. Having just building on
It
that
might
knowledge.
not be property though. Everybody's convinced that you're going to make a killing in property, but the only people making a killing in property really are the people that are actually selling the courses to the other people.
Yeah.
And it's like drop shipping as well on Amazon. Everybody goes on about drop shipping on Amazon, but the people that are doing the drop shipping and telling people about the drop shipping on Amazon are the people that are selling the courses to teach people about drop shipping on Amazon. So nobody's making any money. And what Amazon do is they find out everything it works and then they do it themselves.
Yeah.
So as soon as you start doing stuff via Amazon and you're on the market as Amazon and you're actually making a killing at it,
They'll pick up
Amazon
on.
will replicate what you do and wipe you out overnight. You're gone. So you have to watch for that. And it's not, this stuff isn't going to be for anybody. So it's like what you say, you've things that you've got to do. And I teach this a lot, and I'd say a lot of people, and they're not even prepared to read a book. They're not even prepared to read a book. That's it. I'm reading Main Street Millionaires by Cody Sanchez, who talks about buying boring businesses. She owns a chain of laundromats, and she's worth millions as a result of that, because she buys all the boring repeat purchase businesses. The best businesses are cash flowing all the time. They're not debt laden, and they've got opportunity to grow over a period of time, have loyal customers, repeat customers every single time, and they're cash based businesses. That's what I love. That's what I love. That's why I love letting agencies. So, you know, my acquisition trail now will be letting agencies. So I want to buy letting agencies from now on. And my at some point I will be changing my bio to I buy letting agencies up to £1 million turnover. And I don't care where it is, I'll buy it. If the numbers work. If it's a cash flowing business and there's opportunity to expand it and digitize it and bring it into the new revolution and social media and everything like that, there's opportunity to add significant value based on what we do already, then definitely I'll buy it. I'll be buying it. That's key. I'm not in the fan of buying a new job, by the way. So I don't want a job. Businesses is where it's at. So Main Street Millionaire, Cody Sanchez, is a really good book for anybody who wants to develop wealth. And these are the areas where fund managers don't go, because fund managers just want to buy everything that's over a 10 million turnover. That's what they're wanting to buy. And businesses are exciting to their investors. A classic example was, oh God, what's his name? Just try to think his name. Could have went diving with him. He's talking about, you know, he has a fund that invests in high risk investments, but one of the investments he's looking at now is a guy from NASA that actually is going to have scientific vessels actually land on asteroids and mine the asteroids for the minerals.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and it will be minerals that you don't get on Earth. There will be minerals that are scarce on Earth that are actually on the asteroids, no bother. So that's one of the businesses he's looking at just now. Kevin Dunlap, that's it. That'll
cost a fair amount of money to do a project like that.
He's no bad. His fund's 400 million.
Okay.
And then he's got people waiting. And what he does is he's obviously attracting all these people. He's got them on a list, and he says, basically, these are the conditions. You better have that money ready, because when I find the right project, you've told me you've got that money ready. We need to invest in it. And that's what they do. So they don't give him the money now. They just say they've got it aside. They're committed to it. When he gets the right project, right, everybody, let's start this fund. He runs it for 10 years. And then after 10 years, they get rid of the fund, and everybody takes their return on investment on it.
Right.
So these are the sort of things that you learn from. So, and this is all about then learning from the other people and taking various courses. I mean, he was like, no, I'll pay for my diving. And I went, no, I'll pay for your diving. I've got your time.
Yeah.
Your time's more important to me. So I'm quite happy to pay $170 for you to go diving with me. No bother.
Which is nothing compared to what knowledge you could pick up for a person like
nothing.
that.
Oh my God, the knowledge and expertise. He doesn't even know he's got it
Mm-hmm.
because he's so used to doing that. It's
Just
just
becomes
like
second
second
nature.
nature.
Yeah.
Yeah. He started running a family fund with other people, and then eventually set up his own family fund, and that's what he does. And then there's Brian as well, but Brian's in a totally different league as well. You know, he's another fund manager, but he's flipping heck. 400 million is probably no getting out my bed at that level. So
Mm-hmm.
these are the sort of things. So it's amazing how you get your eyes opened when you get to a different sphere, and you think to yourself, "Wait a minute, they're just like me."
Mm-hmm.
So what are they doing different that I'm not doing? And then you begin to see it's like they just think bigger.
Yeah.
They just understand that there's more opportunity out there, and they just think on a bigger scale. So instead of buying one property, I tell you what, we'll buy 50.
Mm-hmm.
Trump's a classic example. It's like when he first started, his first project was the Commodore Hotel, and actually in New York. Do you know he negotiated a 40-year tax break? A 40-year tax break, which was worth 160 million in the 80s.
How did he do that?
That's it. New York was out on their knees. It was called it used to be called the Dream City or something like that, and then it was called the Fear City.
Right. Okay.
Because the crime rate was high at that time and all the rest of it. And he says, I'm going to take over the Commodore Hotel. I'm going to completely refurbish it. I'm going to put X amount of millions into it. I want a 40-year tax break. And they went, fantastic, because nobody was investing in New York.
Right.
And they gave him it. And then the next minute he had another thing. I'm going to do this and I want a tax break. And he got another tax break for something else, the Grand Hyatt.
Right.
And then he went to Atlantic City. And then he opened these casinos. And he got even more tax breaks for doing that. Because he's investing millions in it. So what
Mm-hmm.
am I going
Yeah.
to get out? You give me a 40-year tax break then. So I don't pay tax on this for the next 40 years.
But I'm injecting this into the local. Yeah.
He was turning $1 million a day and he was getting a tax break on it.
That's not to be sniffed at.
And there's the other lesson how he went bankrupt because he just thought he had the Midas touch. Does that sound familiar?
Yes. I think you've
That's
been
how I
there.
lost $1 million. Eh?
It's just,
That's how I
yeah.
lost $1 million, isn't it? I thought I had the Midas touch. Well, hey, I'm worth $1 million. I've got the Midas touch. I'll buy that. I'll buy this. I'll buy that. I'll buy this. The next minute, oh my God. It's like, that's what happens. So he did the same thing on a huge scale and
Mhm.
just overcommitted himself and overdid it. And even his dad walked in at one point in time, and I think he bought. It wasn't. He bought. What happened was he got somebody to represent him to try and bail him out. He walked into his
Mhm.
casino, bought about 400 million in chips, and actually just took them away and never spent them. That's
Right.
what his
Okay.
dad did. To help him
Mhm.
with cash. He just bought $4 million, $400 million or something like that. It's in the program and
Right.
chips. And to give him a cash flow input, so he was able to do that without actually handing it to him. He just got a representative
Yeah.
to do that, and then walk away. So instantly they had 400 million in the cash flow to help them. But it never survived because it was when the recession came along. Not the first recession. There's been loads of recessions over the years.
Yeah.
It was one of the recessions that really brought it all down to his knees. And the day he was opening was the day that basically all the recessions, and then 9/11 happened, and then
Mhm.
it made it even worse. So this was all the things that happened as a result. So see how I don't hold Donald Trump on a pedestal. What I do is I learn from what he's done.
Yeah. It's learning from. Yeah.
A master and a genius in marketing.
I
Definitely,
think
you can
no
see that.
matter your views on Trump, you can't deny that fact.
He's when it comes to marketing, he's a sole one-man marketing machine. He knows
Yeah.
exactly how to play things and how to get an audience and how to work up the audience as well, and how to appeal to certain groups of people. And he's worked out over the years based on the information he's gleaned from other people.
Mhm.
A guy one of the reporters wrote a scathing article against him for some reason. And Trump got his lawyer. He had one of the best. The lawyer he had was the guy that represented all the crime families.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, he said you better retract that. I'm going to get Rob Cohen on you. And everybody knew Rob Cohen. They went, oh, I'm retracting it straight away.
Mhm.
Because they knew what was coming next. This guy took no prisoners as a lawyer. And that's the people he had on his side at the time. Not the families, but the lawyer.
The lawyers, yeah.
It was like cutthroat, killer instinct, just goes straight for the jugular. And then, admittedly, once it was over and he retracted the statement, he invited him round to Trump Tower and he employed him as his PR agent. Hello? This is a guy that just castigated in the papers, and you've just employed him as your PR agent. No daft.
Yeah, I was just going to say that says quite a lot for him as a person, that he obviously identified that this guy, regardless of what he'd just done, was good at what he does.
He's what most people would call a sociopath. In
Yeah,
other words, he'll do what's necessary, and he doesn't
regardless of the
bother about the
emotional
consequences.
side.
He
Yeah.
doesn't have any feelings towards it about what he's
Yeah.
done or animosity towards it. He just does it. And that's a good thing sometimes for a lot of people, and that's how they build their businesses. But sometimes it's obviously, and we always view it because small man on the street goes, "Oh, that's a really negative thing to do." It's like,
Morally, it's
well,
like,
unfortunately, that's why some of these people get mega rich, and that's the kind of things you've got to learn to have to do, and that's why some people come to you and say, "Well, it's just business," and I can't get over that sometimes. It's just business. No, it's bloody personal.
So that does really nicely bring me into the next point I was wanting to talk about, and it's people have this belief that wealth and people that have a lot of wealth and things, it's an evil thing, and it's something that holds a lot of people back because they believe that wealth is inherently, it's a bad thing and it's evil. And
Right. Let me just correct that straight away.
okay,
Person in the street, lying in
yeah,
the gutter, begging. They've got nowhere to go. They've got no money. Who do you think is going to be able to help them out? The wealthy person or the person that's broke?
the wealthy person.
There you go. Just answer my question. So
Yeah.
does that mean they're evil then?
No.
There you go then. Just answered that question as well.
Yeah. I mean that's
So
I mean I know that, but a
believing
lot
wealth is evil is the story that most poor people tell themselves in order to justify themselves why they're not wealthy. Because they've not done it. This is the excuse they give themselves for not doing it. Well, it just
justify it
makes
to
you evil.
themselves. Yeah.
It changes you. It makes you a different person having all that wealth. You're damn right it does, and it's bloody great. I'll tell
Yeah.
you. And I tell you what, you can do a hell of a lot with it for the people that are actually needing it. Some of the vulnerable people, some of the food banks that you can donate to, that you otherwise wouldn't be able to donate to. Some of the people in your family you can help out as a result, who maybe need to jump the queue because their operation is essential in order for them to live. And I really mean it. National health is failing, and America's even worse. It's like you've only got $18,000. This is going to cost you 15,000 to sew back that finger, and it's going to cost you 9,000 to sew back that finger. So which fingers do you want to sew back?
That's crazy. No,
That's
really,
happened. If you watch,
no.
Bowling for Columbine, I think no, it's but it's the same guy. It's the guy, the producer, that does these films. But he does one on the health services around the world and the people, and it's like an inhaler will cost you thousands every single month to have inhalers in America, and yet you go to for example Cuba, and it's $2. It's like, what? So America, it costs an absolute fortune. In Cuba, it costs $2 to buy the same
Dollars.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. In Britain or in Scotland, it's free.
Yeah, through the NHS. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then things like that, and that's where the phrases like, money is the root of all evil, and rich people are greedy and things, and these things are all ingrained in us through society and media and social media and their upbringing. And we've explored that previously as well.
Yeah, as I said, I think it's Believer it said here,
Believe
the
it,
part of the age of old misrepresentation of the Bible is it's the love of money that's the problematic for
yeah,
mankind. That's all.
definitely.
Love. And nobody loves money. Well, some people do, but that's their problem. But it's for me, it's a tool to do better things for other people,
Yeah.
not just for me. Why? I
Yeah.
mean, there's only so much you can make, and the rest is just for show. And I'm not a showman. I mean, despite the thousands of videos or the hundreds of videos I do, I am not a showman. I
No.
don't want to do things like that, really. But I know this leads to developing more money and more income, and therefore, what happens out of that is it allows me to help more people.
And people might think that's quite funny hearing you on this platform and see you on a lot of videos and things as well. But I know, because I know you personally, that you're not that kind of extrovert person, and out with doing this because you know the benefits of it, you aren't really that extrovert person.
Well, look at what we've done so far. We've managed to give over £150,000 back into our communities, into our
Hmm.
charities and our local causes, just out of the fact of having 5 properties. Five
Yeah,
properties has contributed £150,000 over the last 5 years towards our communities, and it will continue. It will continue to contribute uh, more every single year as a result. As long as there's people out there that use us and see what we do, we will continue to do that. And the same will happen with Dundee properties. The same will happen with Edinburgh properties. The same will happen with Glasgow properties. The same. And you're too late. I've bought all the website names, so don't. There's no point in looking up daddy. Um, what is it? The website purchasing place. Aye.
yeah.
There's no point. I've bought it. GlasgowProperties.co.uk,
GoDaddy.
Edinburgh Properties.co. Yeah, GoDaddy, Edinburgh Properties, and also Dundee Properties.co.uk as
Yeah.
well. And yeah, you can go buy the rest, but I couldn't care less. You're paying fees every single month to keep it, and I'm not needing it. And I'll just change the name, or I'll just start a different company. So it's you're going to waste your money if you go and buy something else that's similar.
But
So
these
it's
examples, yeah, these examples of giving back and helping charities and local communities and things, they're all prime examples of how wealth can be used for, opportunity and positive changes and used as a tool, as you said. It's a tool as opposed to something
yeah.
that's perceived as evil by, well, let's dare we say it, the people that are broke.
Silverburn.
Yeah.
Local group, local
Yeah.
thing. We're needing to buy new benches. How much are they going to cost? Well, probably about a thousand, maybe a bit more. It's like, all
Hmm.
right, I'll give you 3 grand.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thanks. Thanks very much.
And that'll be all the new
Silverburn
benches.
Festival. We need sponsorship. You want to sponsor this year, Jim? And it runs at a cost base. It's not a profit making entity. They make the money on the food trucks they've got there. That's fine, but it wipes its feet, so to speak. And it says, you want to sponsor it this year, Jim? And I went, yeah, that's fine. I'll just do the same as usual. Put a bit more in, help you out, and then we'll take it for there. So another event which is local to here. But remember, the money we give back follows the house sales that we get
Hmm.
and the house rentals that we get as well. So,
Yeah.
for example, if we had £30,000 to give back and all our business was done in St Andrews, then £30,000 would go to St Andrews local causes and
Go to that
charities.
area. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it works. The money doesn't go to places that don't use us.
No.
The intention is not to buy people's business. The intention is to give back to the people that have given us the business in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. That
So it,
absolutely
so,
makes
so it
sense.
follows that. So as a competitor comes into our area and takes maybe market share or business off us, our contribution to that area
Will go
drops as
down.
a result.
Yeah.
And it's customer led then. So it's like, if you don't want us to help you out, then don't use us. We'll not contribute. How many estate agents actually do that? I don't know any estate agents that actually give back to the local communities. I've seen some make £10 million and they've never put their bloody hand in their pocket for anything. That's
Yeah.
shocking. But then that's just me personally.
I think, yeah, and obviously that's derived from, I mean, you're local to the Leaven area and seeing how you could help and benefit the local area, and then it's just grew for there, obviously. Which
Yeah,
is a great,
I would love
great
to do
thing.
it Fife wide. I had the plan at one. Well, if every, for example, if every property in Fife was sold through us, it's just an example. There would be £1 million every single year go back to Fife's local causes.
Hmm.
£1 million every year. It never existed before.
Yeah.
Going back into Fife, into local people and local causes to help the vulnerable, all because they used us to sell their house.
Yeah.
It's just, and it's like, well, You're just using everybody else, so you may as well just use us, and then we can give the money back as well. And that's £1 million it would go back into the community. £1 million.
And it could get and it could be clearly demonstrated how that's been put back into the communities and how it's helping locals and things as well.
Yeah, but it's just hey, we don't all think like that, and some people think selfishly about themselves and how much they'll save, and some people think cheap, and they think cheap is the greatest thing to do. But I always say, buy. I think it's buy quality, buy only once. If you buy cheap, you'll probably buy twice.
Buy cheap, you buy twice. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a false economy. I've tried it over the years. It doesn't work, by the way. Buying cheap, it just doesn't work. You end up buying. It's a classic example about. And I first came across it when we were painting houses, and it took me about 5 coats on a wall with maybe Focus DIY. Remember Focus DIY?
Yeah, Focus. Yeah.
And Home Base used to get paint out of there, their own brands, and it used to take about 5 coats of paint to cover a wall sometimes. And it's like you think about the 5 times you're having to do that, and yet you bought Dulux for double the price, and you'd only take 2 times.
2 coats and you're done. Yeah.
And yet Dulux was only £15, where the other one was £8. Your time's more valuable, by the way. So
Yeah.
I would have saved hundreds, if not thousands, of hours if I had worked out in the first place about using something that would take 2 coats rather than actually 5 coats. But it was only through experience and actually, getting that experience of that happening that then the penny dropped, and I thought, this is stupid. It's like, why would I want to do this to think I can save when my time's the most valuable asset? I'm never going to get back. I'm never going to get to my deathbed and think to myself, I wish I'd spent more time painting that wall.
Yeah.
You would say, I wish I'd spent less time painting that wall. That's why you get other people to do it. That's the whole point of making money, so other people can do the jobs you don't want to do. Hate the laundry? Go out and make money then and pay somebody to do it.
Get somebody to do it for you, yeah.
Yeah. The hours that you're doing your laundry is the hours that you could actually make money on part-time. And you could end up you could make more than what you're paying somebody else to do it. Nobody thinks like that. That's on a small scale how a rich person begins to think. It's like, how can I multiply my efforts? Billionaires, it's like, how do I multiply my efforts? I tell you what, I create companies, and what I'll do is I'll employ people, and I'll get them to do the jobs, and then I'll make a small profit over every single person, because that's the whole ideology of capitalism. I make a small profit of every person's efforts, and that profit builds into a big profit as the more I grow and the more sales I make. Not every sale I make is another cha-ching in the drawer. It's like, no, you have to bring in more resources for every sale you're making, and you have to use more resources for every sale. So therefore, that's why you would do that. Except when you do things like subscription-based and you've got videos there, everybody gets access to. It's kind of like writing a book, and it's going to pay money for the rest of your life, and it is literally high-margin stuff. But you've put all the effort in the beginning, like building a house.
Yeah, they're the types of things that will continue working and earn the money for you when you're not even here.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So let's round up. And I did have the last part of what I was going to talk about today was about believing in yourself and how some people don't have a great belief in themselves and their ability to succeed and be successful in their journey for wealth and things. And I put in quite a good saying here from Henry Ford, and he famously said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right either way. And that might not make sense to everybody, but if it doesn't, think about that and go and look up Henry Ford, because he did say that. But I'm sure you'll agree, Jim.
You can, yeah, you're absolutely right, and it's rolled down through generations to come. And the fact that if you believe you can, you can. If you believe you can't, you can't. That's in a nutshell.
Either way, you're right. Yeah.
Because remember, in an isolated incident, you're in an exact example here in an environment where everything's the same. If your brain's like a computer, so basically, if you keep telling your brain that you can't do it, your brain will just go away and find the answers as why you can't do it.
Yeah.
If you continually tell yourself, and believe it or not, it is that simple. It is that simple, and it is as simple as saying, telling yourself every day, you can do it, and your brain will start to work on ways to find out how you can do it. It'll be a lot more difficult though, because your brain accepts the fact that you can't do it a lot easier than you can do it. So here's a great one to start with every single time. This is how I started. I looked at myself in the mirror every single day, exactly like I'm doing right now, and I saw myself in the mirror, and I used to say to myself, every day and every way, you're getting better and better. Every day and every way, you're getting better and better. And I used to smile at myself once, or
did you
twice. I
find
used to
that
say,
help?
hey, every day and every way, you're getting better and better. Every day and every way, you're getting better and better. Did you realize that? And it's like I'm talking to myself. It's like someone giving me a pep talk. You know, someone boasting me up. And it's like the wee cogs in your, and the endorphins that get released as a result of that actually are beneficial towards you. And they actually give you inspiration. And your mind starts to think about every day and every way how you get better and better every single time. And you start to work towards that as a result of it. And if you keep conditioning yourself and keep saying that to yourself all the time, and not allowing your brain to dismiss it, because that's what does happen. It goes, oh, fuck. Just lie down and accept it. You know, you're a failure. That's what happens. And you just, no, I'm not gonna take that shit from you. You know, shut up, Bubbles. That's what my wee thing on my thing is, Bubbles. That's its name, the voice in my head. It's like, shut up, Bubbles. I'm not going to take that shit from you. It's like every day and every way, I'm getting better and better. And you're not going to change that. Often I've looked at myself in the mirror and I thought, I wonder if that guy's going to go, boo. and checking, you know, like one of these films is like, that person just move. Did they move their eye? And yet it's me meant to be. It's like that sort of thing. Yeah? But you have to do that. And you could change habits as well. You can, you know, brush your teeth with your left hand and start to do that. All these different things you could start to mess your routines up, and that's fine because you remember you've got to change some things in your life to
In order
change some
to,
things in your
yeah.
life. Because if you don't change anything in your life, you just keep getting exactly the same thing. If you keep adding 1 + 1, you're always going to get 2. It's never going to change. But if you add 1 + 3, it's like, wait a minute, that's 4. That's a different answer. It's just as basic and simple as that. You have to start somewhere, like from couch to 5K. You just have to get yourself off the couch.
And build that up, yeah.
Mentally, you have to get yourself off the couch.
Yeah, and I think like you say, it's not thinking about the bigger picture. It's just thinking about what you need to do incrementally until you get there.
And if anybody says, "Oh, I believe myself completely," it's like, are you where you want to be? And if the answer to that is no, then you clearly don't.
Yeah.
You have doubts because you were there already.
Yeah, definitely. Right, okay, so let's round up today. And I think what we've clearly demonstrated is this wealthy mindset or thinking rich is all about perspective. I think wealth really does start in the mind. And when you believe in yourself and you have that perspective, then it does open doors to opportunities that were maybe once hidden in your own doubt, probably. So I think it's fair to say shifting your mindset to think like a wealthy person isn't just about money. It's about transforming your approach to life and your opportunities and those challenges and things and changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Good. Thanks for the comments. Believe it, yeah, we've got Jim has read one of your comments there, but you've got a few other comments there. So thanks for joining in. And anybody else who's been watching,
Hit the subscribe button, folks.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I've been told to do this every single time. Tell people to hit the subscribe button.
Subscribe,
And it's
yeah.
like, it's neither here nor there, but on honesty, it probably does help if you hit the subscribe button, because the more people you have, apparently the more priority YouTube puts on it. Therefore, it's probably beneficial overall. And it's free information, free advice. It's not as if I've got a sales funnel and I'm trying to sell you something later on. No intention of doing that at all. This is just free information. And don't believe the adage, by the way. If it's for free, it's no value. There's no value in it, because it is directly from me. And yes, I will be visiting Richard Branson Necker Island again this year.
Yeah.
So that would probably tell you everything if you knew exactly how much it costs to visit Necker Island.
Yeah. So yeah, well, as usual, you could catch us on a Monday at 12:30 on here for the Wealth Creation Show, whether you're on YouTube or whatever platform you're on. And until then, we will see you then, guys. And you'll catch us. There's a rerun that goes on as well. If you're in the comments on the rerun, put them in there, and we will endeavour to come back to you as soon as we can. All right. Thanks for that, Jim. That was great.
Bye for now.
Bye.